Are you looking for fantasy TTRPGs? One that reminds you of the old school feel of playing advanced Dungeons and Dragons, D&D 2nd edition, things like that you may miss from the past, but you're looking for a new, more modern take on it. But you're not wanting to go in the path of D&D 5e or Pathfinder because they may be a bit more complicated or use a system that you might not like. Well, in today's episode, we are going to be talking about Castles and Crusades, which is a old school fantasy game with a modern twist to it and a completely different rule set that you may find more appealing towards your games. It also has lower magic and a much different take on character creation. It's really, really fascinating, and if you do love fantasy games but you're just looking to switch it up or try something new and see if it works, please listen to this episode as we bring on our guest Meliora to talk all about Castles and Crusades with us. And I am so very excited, and enough of me talking here. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone, to the RPG Goblin, a TTRPG podcast that makes learning these games fun and easy. I am your host, Willow, and I am the resident goblin and the one who asks all the questions because I love these games and I just want to learn all kinds of things. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about a game called Castles and Crusades. And I actually learned about this game not very long ago from a tweet that our guest here posted about on Twitter, and I can't wait to learn all about it. But first, let me introduce you to our guest here, Meliora. If you would like to introduce yourself and what you do and where people can find you, please go ahead.
Hey, Willow. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to chat with you about Castles and Crusades. Yeah. So I'm Meliora, or Mel. You can find me at Meliora Henning, MeliOraHenning on Twitter. I'm not really on many other social platforms at the moment. I do have a link tree there, so you can follow whatever else I have. I also have my homebrew setting, Agrimore, that I pimp out all the time among Castles and Crusades and Pathfinder 2nd edition. It is a wiki website that I have set up for my setting. So if you are interested in checking it out, that is at agrimore.com. More spelled like the marshland kind. I am one of the artists for Castles and Crusades. I'm one of their newer artists that they brought on board. And that started about late winter. And here we are.
Woo! That is still so insanely cool. Like, to work as an artist for, to do art for a TTRPG, like, what could be better?
Oh yeah, it was totally by accident too. I just got into the game over winter with my girlfriend, and we started digging into the rules system. And the first thing that I wanted to do was deconstruct the character sheet because Steve, Davis, I love you boys, but that the character sheet needs some work. And so I did a hand sketch of my own version of the character sheet. And Davis,
so cool.
Yeah, Davis, one of the CEOs of Troll Lord Games, actually reached out to me. And so that is one of the projects that we're working on in the back end, is me developing a new character sheet for the system. Not long after getting brought on board, Steve, the other owner of Troll Lord Games, saw a little bit of my artwork, and next thing I know, I've been off to the races.
Oh, that's so cool! I love that. That's one thing that I adore about the TTRPG community. It's so, people just find each other, and that's how relationships just start. Is oh man, I just did this sketch of a custom character sheet, and now look at you working for the actual people who created the game. That is amazing.
I know. Well, it was just so unexpected. You don't really ever think that sort of thing just happens until it happens to you. Most of the time, we usually, think right place, right time, and that happens to some people, but not everybody. That doesn't happen to me. And here I am just doing a throwaway thing, and ta-da!
Literal dream job. So.
Oh man, girl, I have both of my dream jobs. I have this, my main gig as well. Sorry, let me roll it back. My main gig is a graphic designer, so that's my dream job. And now my quote unquote beer money gig is doing artwork for Troll Lord Games. So, yeah.
Perfect. That is fantastic. Oh my gosh. So, you mentioned getting into Castles and Crusades late winter. I'm assuming is it late winter within like this year? So you've only been playing since like 2023?
Yeah, right around late December of last year, so 2022, which, funny enough, is whenever I got hired on to my actual dream job. So that timing is weird.
It's amazing. Everything just exploded.
Yeah, I don't know like what karma I got done paying for over the last 30 years or so, but like I'm cool. We're good.
Love it. So how did you find out about Castles and Crusades?
So funny enough, I heard about them long before the OGL debacle.
Mhm.
I actually heard about them whenever there was like a stir up on Twitter over like RPG companies either taking or not taking a stance on certain political
Mhm.
topics.
Mhm.
And Troll Lord Games, and mind you, I'm just speaking from like a subcontracted artist's perspective in my own memory. I'm not speaking for them here. They're very apolitical in how they handle things. They're just here to show the game, have fun, share the game that they love with everybody, and that's it. They keep politics out of it.
Mhm.
And at that point, I was like, hell yeah, I want to get involved with that. I love that. Like there's nothing wrong with having your political stance and
Mhm.
trying to make the world a better place and etc and so forth, but ultimately, like, in my opinion, gaming is for escapism. We can leave all that real world crap like outside of the game. Let that be outside. Just gather around the table, have some fun with your friends, man. Like, have
Absolutely.
fun. So that's how I heard about them. And at that point I was like, okay, well, like, yeah, like I'll check them out.
Mhm.
And the seventh printing of Castles and Crusades is free. So the seventh printing player's handbook, you can get it for free.
Mhm.
And check it out. And I downloaded it. I loved it. So then I went ham and I bought all of the books.
Of course.
um, and funny enough too, it came along in a time of my life where I have been very burnt out by fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons.
Mhm.
Um, if I was to break down my wall of games or my collection of games, I have fourth edition D&D, I have second edition D&D,
Mhm.
I even have some first edition books.
Ooh, very cool.
But oh yeah, and I don't know, just like fifth edition doesn't sit well with me.
Mhm.
I often make the joke that it's too safe, quote unquote, because you just can't die. So it's just kind of like, whatever. Like,
Not gritty enough for me.
it doesn't have enough balls, man. It's like, and to preface, like, I am a Dark Souls player,
Mhm.
so like
Of course.
it makes sense, doesn't it? Like, I'm the sociopath or psychopath, whatever you want to call it, that plays Dark Souls to relax.
I mean, I haven't gotten into the Souls game myself, but I pretty much I play mostly roguelikes when I want to relax as well. So it's not to the extreme as that, but I understand.
We're like neighbors in a way. So Castles and Crusades does hit that gritty sort of fantasy that I wanted,
Mhm.
but it still has so many years worth of design iteration on top of it. So
Yeah.
the way I would describe it, it is the best way to enjoy a modern fantasy D20 game while still maintaining the old school feel.
Ooh, I
So
like that. Yeah.
so the main system that it operates off of is the Siege engine, and that's sort of what sets it apart
Ooh.
from everything else.
Mhm. I have
And
never heard of that.
you're gonna love this. So I'm gonna come back to that in a second. But the game was developed alongside, I think, the Chenault brothers developed it alongside Gary Gygax, if I'm not mistaken, in what I
Oh,
remember from our
interesting.
chat. Yeah, because like Gary, mind you, this is me trying to recollect, and I've slept since then. Um, as far as I recall, Steve was telling me that it was developed back whenever Gary needed a home for Greyhawk. And so they worked together to, like, the entire TLG team at the time worked alongside him to create this sort of game that is, it's essentially first edition D&D, but they made it more fun. It's like, if you've ever played first edition, you know, there's like strength caps and stat caps depending on your race, your gender, etc. I mean, that's not in here. And you can still hit things if if you roll not terribly low, but like you have a better hit rate than like 40%. I'm looking at you, Old School Essentials. So you have roughly like a 65% chance to hit anything at any time. So it's very fun and it's very quick.
Love it.
And the way I play it, we usually do just death at 0 HP. I know that's controversial for some people. Like, you know what? Get over it. But you can play it however you want. It's very modular. But now the Siege engine, the way it works is that every class, and it's either every class or every race. It's been a little bit, and I need to refresh on that specific bit. But you have prime and secondary attributes. And that's what you do all your skill checks and any other check based on. So it's based around a challenge base, which is always 2 numbers, unless you want to play with variant rules. But don't do that. Just play it as is. The 2 numbers are a 12 or an 18. The 12 is any attribute being checked against it is usually your primary. So obviously it's lower if it's your primary ability, and 18 if it's your secondary. So I'll just read you an example from the Castle Keeper's Guide, or the CKG.
Ooh, Castle Keeper, like it.
Indeed. So you're not a GM, you're a Castle Keeper. It's fun. So for those of you at home following along, you can turn to page 283 of your CKG, chapter 15, the Siege Engine. And the example they give is that Josh's character, Johan, has just attempted to pick the pocket of a merchant. Johan is a 3rd level rogue with a 14 dexterity, so +1. The dexterity is his prime attribute. The merchant is a 0 level. So the pickpocket requires a dexterity check. And so you ask Josh for one. So the CK will say, your rogue has reached his grimy little hand into the merchant's broadcoat and feels a silk purse. Please roll for a pickpocket check. So Josh says, Johan silently prays for success and attempts to pull out the purse. He rolls a 14 on his prime. So because he rolled a 14 without any modifiers, and it is his prime ability, it's a success. Done.
Okay.
However, if instead, let's say that the pickpocket, or that the victim, quote unquote, is a 7th level rogue in disguise as a merchant. Ooh, spicy. So then you add 7 to the challenge base. So since the challenge base is 12 for the prime ability, you add 7 to it. So the target number is a 19. So Johan rolls a 14. He adds his level, which is 3, and dexterity modifier, which is 1, for a total of 4. The final roll is an 18, so it's a failure. That's it. Super simple.
Yeah, that's actually really easy.
And there are variants, so you can go all sorts of all over the place with it. But that is the engine upon which Castles and Crusades is run. And
very, very nice.
Oh, I know. It's lovely. And the best part is that with each printing of the book, because they don't have editions, mind you, they have printings. With each printing, they fix the layouts, make them look better, and they also fix little rules here and there. But they don't call it a new edition because it's still the same game at its core.
I like that. So how many printings do they have out right now?
So every book is different. Currently, the Player's Handbook is out on its 8th printing, but there is a 9th printing coming out because they are printing everything else, or they're reprinting everything OGL free. In light of the wizards being dumb. For being a little bit more PG. And as far as the Monsters and Treasure book, which is your monster manual, and the CKG, they're on different printings. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head at the moment, but I know the Player's Guide is on the 8th. It's the furthest along. I think the Castle Keeper's Guide is probably on its 4th or 5th. It's barely been redone. And the book is freaking massive. Like, if I pull up this tome, we have 368 total pages.
Ooh, love that.
Oh, and it has everything you could ever want. You have a chapter on expanding your characters. You have magic, expanding your equipment, a chapter dedicated to NPCs, an entire chapter dedicated to world building, the city building, dungeons, different types of adventures, equipment wastage, land as treasure, going to war, monsters, the future, advancing your game, of course, the siege engine, treasure, different types of combat, skill packages, and even character death. So
and this is in which book again?
The Castle Keeper's Guide.
Oh my god, that's so much.
Yeah, you get a lot, and there are tables. There's not any wasted space, and the book is incredible. We often tease Steve over like, hey, we need to add like 600 more pages to the CKG, please.
Make it even heavier.
Yes, make it even better.
No, but that's amazing. I mean, having those resources in official books like that is so useful. And it's so nice to just be able to flip it open and have a whole chapter on NPCs.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely,
and,
it is.
I assume on how to like create them and things like that, like the details that you're going to need when you run a game.
Everything you could ever possibly need is in the Castle Keeper's Guide. It is an incredible book. But even further beyond that, the Chenault brothers and their infinite wisdom, and yes, I am stroking your egos, boys, if you're listening. They have released a adventurer's dictionary and thesaurus. So that way you can have these two wonderful books of just words, like common words to use in your fantasy setting, as well as alternative words, maybe words you've never even heard before.
That's so cool.
Imagine having a dictionary and a thesaurus specifically made for fantasy gaming rather than just real world stuff.
I love that. That is that's just such a fun idea in general, even if it wasn't like with the gaming stuff, but just like a fantasy thesaurus. That's so cool.
It is.
That. That's an amazing idea.
It's just great. And they even have short fiction that they've written inside of their setting. So there's so much stuff. There's a lot of stuff.
It seems so. So that is amazing. And so you did kind of explain a bit about like what Castles and Crusaders is, but I would like to for people who are in the maybe people who have played D&D for forever, or people who are just who might not even be in the hobby but are listening to this, how would you explain what Castles and Crusaders is as a game? Like what kind of the genre and stuff like that?
It is Castles and Crusades is a fantasy role-playing game. Straight up. That is all you need to know about it. It is a fantasy role-playing game. You can use it to play high fantasy, you can have it play dark fantasy, low fantasy, high magic, low magic. It can fit anything.
Perfect.
So that's why it, along with Pathfinder 2nd Edition, are my primary systems that I run, because they fit what I need specifically. And anybody coming from 5th edition or any other edition of Dungeons and Dragons will find very familiar things within the system. Anybody who's not played a game like this before, I could easily teach them how to play this over the course of an evening. I could set a character sheet in front of them, and they don't need to think. Well, it's great because, so as an example, what do they call these? Oh yeah, the goldenrod character sheets. These are
character sheets.
They are the cleanest of the 2 character sheets that Castles and Crusades officially sells. But on the bottom of each of these sheets, they have all been tailored for every class specifically.
Love that. Yes.
So at the bottom of, let's say, the fighter ranger character sheet, for example, because that's what I have in my hand, they show you a breakdown of everything the fighter or ranger can do per level. So
yes, love it.
Yep, they show you all the character abilities. You don't have to write it down. It's just there.
Oh, that feeds my soul, because I have played D&D was my first game. I played it for a long time, and it took a long time to play with character sheets that had like the abilities of classes on them that other people had to make. And it made my life so much easier. So the fact that that already has those abilities on it, and those are the official character sheets, yes, I love that.
And
Oh
we
my
are
God.
keeping those features on the new ones that I'm developing for them. So
Perfect.
so
Perfect.
they're pretty and they're effective.
Yes.
But like as an example, imagine I hand you a fighter and you say, "Hey, Mel, how do I like dodge or how do I disarm someone?" And those combat maneuvers are there on your sheet. You just look down. Dodge is
Perfect.
+2 AC versus 3 opponents, no other actions. That's it.
Mhm.
Disarm, just hit an AC of 18 plus level plus hit dice of opponent. That's it.
It's so simple. I love it.
Flank attack, rear attack, it tells you what bonuses you get. Everything is there. So I would almost argue that it is an even better introductory system for a new player than even 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, which it is an easy system to learn, let's be honest. But having a character sheet that has everything on it already, I just set it down. Player can look at it and go, "Oh, I can evade?
Yeah.
I can dodge?
And
Ooh."
it keeps those actions in mind even for people who have been playing over a longer period of time. Like it's easy to forget about the fact that you can disarm people or the fact that you can even grapple in D&D. I forget that all the time because it's not on the sheet.
That is one of the biggest things that I have noticed as a fault with 5th edition in the character sheets, not so much the system. Because you're right. The character sheets don't showcase your combat maneuvers unless you write them down. And what player is going to, I mean, I guess maybe aside from you and me, is going to sit down and go, "Ooh, I should make sure I put shove on here as a thing I can do. I should put jump. I should put grapple." But they don't think about it because it's not already on the sheet. If it was on the sheet, I guarantee you more players would be using more combat maneuvers.
Yeah.
Which is it's going to be interesting to see how that develops going forward, because with the release of Baldur's Gate 3, you have players who are now seeing, "Oh, I can shove someone in the rules? What?" They open their player's handbook and go, "Oh, I haven't been doing this the whole time?"
How didn't I
And
know?
exactly. So it's going to be interesting to see what changes are going to happen in sort of the gaming atmosphere after, after everybody finishes Baldur's Gate. But
Yeah.
I
I'm really
digress.
curious. Amazing. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but no, I really adore that. And so, I mean, you've said you think that Castles and Crusades is pretty beginner friendly.
Oh, absolutely. It's beginner friendly. I mean, the character sheet alone is the best starting point. If I can set something down in front of you and it tells you everything you need to know about your character without you ever having to open the book, I mean, outside of building it the first time, perfect.
I love that.
In my opinion, you should only ever need to open your handbook, your player's handbook as a player, if A, you're building a character, B, you're referencing something that you've forgotten, or C, if you're a mage and you need to, what your spell does, because let's be honest, there's a lot.
Oh, magic. Amazing. No, but that's actually, honestly, that's a good way to think about it, that you shouldn't need to open your player's handbook all the time unless you want to, I guess.
Yeah.
Unless you want to read the rules and read different things like that.
And I think it's an interesting way that design philosophy has overlapped too. Obviously, the Trollord Games has thought about this, and they've done a really good job. And I would imagine years of playtesting has helped them get to this point. But even from my graphic designer background, when you think of accessibility, and I'm not talking about be like cut character sheets being able to be like colorblind friendly and all that. I'm talking about new player accessibility, where I could sit down with somebody who has never played an RPG before. I can set down a character sheet and be like, "This is all you need." Well, and here's some dice too. That's on the house. And then crack open a beer, set it down next to him, and be like, "You're going to need this after you die." So
it's going to hurt the first time.
We're going to rip the Band-Aid off. You'll be okay. I promise.
But honestly, that's like, at least for me, I I think character death should be embraced more because it can do a lot for a story. If you want to like do a story where character death, like you want to progress after character death, it can do a lot for a story and like bring in new characters and things like that. But even if you're not doing like a super long campaign, embrace the character death. Embrace doing interesting and goofy things that might lead to death.
Yes, I have had at length discussions on this very topic with so many people, and my girlfriend especially. So the interesting dichotomy in this household, she runs and plays 5th edition D&D. She is also planning on reformatting the rules after her campaign is done to be more reflective of how Divinity plays. We both love Divinity. But she is the type of person who doesn't want to kill characters unless it narratively is satisfying. Whereas I am the opposite and I don't pull punches. If you die, you die. And so we've had discussions. We both absolutely disagree with each other on this on the topic, but it's interesting to hear each other's perspectives. Because I get it. People get attached to their characters, and that's good. You should be attached to your character. You should be invested in the world. If nothing else, just be attached to your damn character. But you know, the attachment and the fear of losing your character should be motivation enough for you to be able to engage in interesting ways with a different system, one that does involve character death, as example, or easier ways to die. Because you're going to come up with creative ways to get around situations, and combat is no longer the only answer.
Yes.
Which is definitely a problem with 5th edition, especially after 12th level, but it's a problem throughout the entire system. And I've outlined this before in that in base, rules is written, just the player's handbook alone. By 3rd level, there are no less than 14 individual ways, excluding individual spells, to stabilize a downed character and get them out of the dying condition.
Yep. That's funny that you say that, because when I started my first D&D campaign, when I started to run my first D&D campaign, all of my players each had a way to heal, and each had a way to do that. So pretty much anyone can get a hold of healing abilities and abilities to avoid death at 3rd level, or even lower if you have a cleric or a druid or things like that.
I feel like that cheapens the overall experience. And I do have to like throw in a little bit of a disclaimer. Like I talk very in favor of character death, and that's both as a dungeon master or a castle keeper and as a player. I don't go out of my way to kill characters. I'm very hands-off as a DM. I have the philosophy of I create the world and I set up the scenarios, and it is up to the players whether or not they allow themselves to live or die. It's not in my hands. They can
allow themselves to live or die.
It's true though. Like they are ultimately in control of whether they flee or fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's their decision. I don't force them into situations that they, I don't force them into situations. I do create situations that are not meant to be won. And, because the world is a living place for me. Like my own setting it's a living world. You're just because you're 1st level doesn't mean if you set out in any direction, you're going to get 1st level challenges. Like this isn't Skyrim, guys. If you go the wrong direction, you'll be like an unfortunate 3rd level party who stumbled into an ancient dragon, and then you're royally screwed if you can't talk your way out of that situation. But so it's just I don't know. I love death being prevalent, and it makes every mission, every quest, every combat just so much more satisfying when you get out of it on the other side, especially when you level up. And at the end of the day, as much as like we GMs love to build wonderful worlds and tell lovely stories, at the end of the day, the players don't give a crap about it. And it sucks, but it's true. Unless you are a lore nerd like myself, or, you genuinely love getting into settings.
That hurt me on the inside, yeah.
It hurts me to say it too, but generally speaking, players, they really only care about their characters. And the memories that they get about the characters, because they'll tell stories about what their characters did, not this cool thing that you saw in the world. Like, for a GM, it's like, oh yes, there's this massive rock that is carved to look like the face of an ancient dragon, but is it really carved from stone, or is it the bones of that dragon? And the players are just kind of like, yeah, cool. Do you guys remember that very same night whenever we like farted around a fire pit and it exploded? Like, that's the stuff they remember. So like it hurts, but it's true.
And it's not that that's necessarily a bad thing, because especially as the GM too, you're always going to obsess on the details that you're creating too, because that's your role and that's your part in the story. Their part is bringing in these characters, and so that's always going to be their main focus. And as GMs, our main focus is always going to be as well the world, like, because that's what we're doing, that's what we're contributing.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, I do want the characters to succeed. I don't want them to die. I'm invested in them too. So like, I wish people understood that when I say that I am in favor of character death, because everybody leaps to the assumption that, oh, you like killing your characters, don't you? And I'm like, no, I don't take pleasure in killing player characters. I don't mind it being a thing. I think it's important. And I don't want them to die, because it sucks for me seeing, my friend or, even just an acquaintance at my table who's just like, damn, I'm kind of sad now. My character died. Like, that sucks. I don't want to like see somebody upset. But also them's the breaks, kid. That's how it works. It's like, but you'll learn. So the next time you create a character, you'll be like, all right, cool. So I died because I didn't check for traps on that lever, and a gelatinous cube fell on me, and then we fell into a pit. Cool. So I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to check for traps next time. You know what? I'm not going to be the thief anymore. I'm going to be I'll be a fighter. I'm just going to sit back and, look over to someone across the table. You can do all the trap checks this time, okay?
But that's the thing with character death. At least if you are doing a longer game where people can go through multiple characters, that's a way for them to just test out a bunch of different things. That's a way for them to learn the game as well. Like, just because your character dies doesn't mean you're out of the game. No, you can keep playing. You just play something else, and you get to learn the game, test out different classes and different combinations and different techniques, and then know, hey, if I don't check for traps, it's possible I'm going to die. And then guess what? Your characters are also going to start living longer with you.
Yes, absolutely. And so to get on topic with Castles and Crusades, because believe me, this is still on topic. When it comes to dungeon crawling, so in the system itself, and mind you, I'm not an expert on the system, okay? I just really love it. There's not necessarily skills. So like there's not athletics, acrobatics, or any of that other stuff. It's just your attributes, your prime and your secondary attributes. And I'm the kind of DM that loves not using roll to win. So skills and skill monkeying and skill dogpiling, as Matt Colville has dubbed it. I love that man. But like, there's not this prevalent of skill dogpiling in the game. So it enables me as a GM to be able to actually create interesting scenarios. Like, here's a 10-foot pit in the dungeon. Cool. And I'm stealing this off of somewhere on the internet. I read it on a blog and I love it. And the party's like, hey, we saw some like benches in the other room. What if we take those, lay them across the pit, and we can cross it? Absolutely, you can.
I love that.
It's using player creativity instead of using your character sheet to solve problems. And that is the essence of old school gaming, not like, everybody dies. Like, no. It's player creativity versus, players using their brains to win as opposed to using their sheets to win.
Absolutely. I love that so much. I love playing that way too. Like, you tell me a creative thing that you're going to do to get around this. What are you thinking? Because I want to be surprised.
So with that being said, when are we playing together again? Like, because that sounds lovely.
I mean, we'll have to set something up then. No, absolutely. That would be fantastic.
I'll give you a run through of Castles and Crusades.
Perfect. But yeah, no, that's amazing. It's just I love that essence of play a lot. And that's not to say that people who play games differently that's worse or anything like that. Everyone has their own individual play styles. That's up however you enjoy a game is how you enjoy a game, and you should find a group that enjoys the game the same way that you do. I
Definitely.
think that is the most important thing when it comes to TTRPGs. Just find the right group, and then you're gonna have a great time, whether you stick with the same system that you've been playing for 10 years or you decide to switch things up all the time. Whatever works for you.
Yes, exactly. And it all comes back down to there's no wrong way to play.
Yep.
Just play your way. Do whatever's fun for you. Bend the
Exactly.
rules, break the rules, do whatever it is that makes the table fun for you. House rule the heck out of it.
It's your game. It really is. And I think that is the best part of this hobby as well, is that the games can be anything that you want because it's mostly dependent on your table. You just got to see what happens.
Exactly. We could sum it up in a single catchphrase. If we were to steal some inspiration from Mr. Wentworth, it's your game, play it the way you need it.
Yes. Exactly. I love it.
Like D6, D6, roll some damage now. I don't know. We'll workshop it.
Exactly. Okay, so a bit more on topic, but before we get into, I'd like to know more about like character creation, things like that. But before we get into that, I want to ask what kinds of stories is Castles and Crusades good at telling? Is it those dungeon crawl stories?
Whatever you want it to be.
Mhm.
Straight up.
Perfect.
It's
Love it.
It can do whatever you want. And you can use your prime and secondary abilities to stand in for skill checks, quote unquote.
Mhm.
So, if you want to make a charisma check, you can use your prime or secondary ability for that. Absolutely. Go for it. But there's not persuasion or intimidation or anything. It expects you to play more old school in that you as the player are telling me, the DM or CK, what it is you're saying or doing. How do you search the room? What do you do to search the room? How are you searching this bookshelf? And, things like that. And so that way, ideally, I know people love rolling dice. I get it. You don't want to not roll dice more. You can still do it, but it encourages any style of play because it's so open-ended.
Perfect. I adore that. And would you say that Castles and Crusades is better for like long-term play where you're playing it over like a campaign, like years, or short-term where you're doing one-shots or like mini arcs?
You could easily do both. Easily.
Perfect.
The character levels cap out at 12, just for everybody, listening in. And I have never played that high, but I'd be interested to see what can happen.
I love that it's 12 though, because I always feel like 20 is an insane cap on a level.
Oh wait, I am so sorry. I'm a fibber. I'm a liar. You can flog me across the back of the noggin and string me up to be beheaded because, oh my gosh, it goes up to level 24 for each class. Oops.
Oh, 24? Oh, that's insane.
But you don't get bonus to hit points after a certain amount. So like, for example, and not to dig too far ahead into character creation, but
I'm just going to start getting into character creation.
Sure. Okay, cool. We'll just jump ahead. So for the fighter, because I love fighters, and I'm pointing a judgmental finger at anybody who says fighters are lame.
Fighters can be cool.
They can be. Just be more creative, okay? So fighters have a D10 for their hit die, and obviously you add I think you do add your Constitution bonus to it. It's been a stretch. Side note, I'm about to start doing a solo playthrough of Castles and Crusades, building some characters.
That's
and
cool.
Have you ever heard of Me, Myself, and Die on YouTube?
I have not, but now I need to.
He's a voice actor, not unlike myself, who does solo play games, and he puts them on YouTube. And I'm thinking of ripping him off a little bit, but doing Castles and Crusades because, look,
that would be awesome.
I love my boys at TLG. They treat me like family. They're wonderful, and they deserve a little bit more, a little bit more recognition and a little bit more marketing. So I want to do that because I think it would be fun. And
of course, that would be amazing.
and
Solo plays are so cool.
absolutely, and there's not enough CNC stuff on YouTube.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of it, and the stuff that I have found has been, it's been a lot of like individuals who are thankfully talking about the hobby and talking
Mhm.
about the setting, but they are, they're not a lot of them show playthroughs. They show character building and explain stuff, but show me gameplay, show me how it can be cool. So I'm
Yeah.
going to be doing that.
That's amazing.
So
Can't wait.
circling back, for a fighter up to level 10, you get to roll a d10 for your hit die, add your con bonus. But then from then on forward from levels 11 through level 19, you only get 4 hit points every level.
Ooh, okay.
And then level 20 through 24, it's only 2 hit points. So the HP threshold is lower, much lower than in 5th edition. And that also helps to keep combats quick and deadly.
Love that.
So it's not going to turn into a slugfest. those of you GMs out there who are tired of having slugfest combats that last up to an hour and a half every night, consider switching to CNC for faster combat. You're going to love it. Thank you. But
seriously, like that's amazing and that's perfect because I hate long combats so much unless they're actually fun. If they're just a long combat for the sake that it's taking forever, no.
And let's break that up into 2 different things too. If I'm playing a long campaign, or even like a long campaign, let's just say long campaign. If I'm on board for long combat, that's cool. But there's not a lot of players who are on board for long combat. That can be a slugfest. That can be a slog. It can be boring. And you have to make it fun. So Pathfinder 2nd Edition is my go-to for crunchy gaming. And you can get long combats in that. Actually, it doesn't take too long. That's another podcast we'll have to do, I bet. Because it goes quick. But even in this is simple. Castles and Crusades is simple. Combats are quick. They're quick and deadly. And I have a gameplay example I can get into. My girlfriend and I, we started doing some gaming together, couples gaming without a GM. We used the Mythic GM emulator to run us through a random campaign. We used the 1st edition AD&D DMG, and we created a random hex map and did a random hex crawl and dungeon crawl. So the dungeons were randomly generated. Oh yeah, it was cool. We had no idea what we were getting into. We started with old school essentials, and this is tying back to me judging it a little earlier. We quickly found out that low percentiles to be able to hit anything is not fun. We got into a fight, just the 2 of us. I was playing we had 4 characters, controlling 2 each. I was controlling the fighter and the cleric, and she was controlling the rogue and the wizard. And we got into a fight with 4 bandits. All 4 of them, or all of these characters, all 8 bandits and all 4 characters, we went into combat and we were rolling low for an hour. We couldn't hit each other for an hour.
Oh no.
And it gets better. The cleric was the MVP because the cleric could thankfully do reversal spells and do inflict wounds. And it's like, okay, well, at least somebody's doing damage. So like the cleric wound up being like in our headcanon John Wick of that universe. But we didn't have fun because it was low hit threshold percentiles. And you quickly realize that not having a bonus to hit really hurts.
Oh yeah, for sure.
At least whenever the thresholds for hitting are so high. And so CNC is very similar with its bonuses in that for your attribute bonuses, you don't get a +1 until level 13 or until 13. And you don't get a -1 until 6 to 8. So 9 through 12 for your stat is a 0. So you do need to get higher bonuses or higher numbers in your stats to get more bonuses. But you can still hit stuff. I promise you can still hit stuff. So we switched over to Castles and Crusades and we replayed that entire scenario. The way we say it is like production got shut down. We recast the entire acting, all the actors. We got all of the new actors in, and we are like, okay, we got back to the scene. and action. Let's refilm it.
I love it.
And the combat went so much smoother in Castles and Crusades.
Oh,
we
amazing.
we did a direct transfer of stats. We didn't reroll new stats. We just copy pasted from OSE and just gave ourselves the appropriate like skills and things. It went so much quicker.
Oh my god. I love it.
It went so much quicker. We actually were able to finish that fight in like maybe 20 minutes between the two of us.
Perfect.
It was the two of us controlling 2 characters each and a quote unquote like a random generator controlling the NPCs as our GM. It went that quickly. It went really well. And
that's amazing.
It changed everything for us. We're like, oh my god, this is so much better. You can feel the difference. So for character creation, you like that segue?
Love it.
So for character creation, it's very familiar for anybody who wants to make a character. You imagine what you want to play. Of course, use your imagination, come up with an interesting idea. And you, in the player's handbook, they recommend that you roll your attributes. And rolling attributes, they have one method that they recommend, and you can do whatever you want, but they recommend rolling 3d6. That's it. That's for your stats.
Ooh. Oh, now, I love it.
There are lower numbers for those of you who are like wincing a little bit. I promise it's okay. It doesn't hurt that bad. Trust me, it's okay.
It's not that painful.
And then you choose a class and a race, and you get your hit points, and you flesh out your character. For hit points, they have, let's see, you roll your hit die, you add your con modifier to get all your hit points. You can begin play with maximum hit points. You can also roll your hit point die the number of times equal to 1 plus your con bonus, which is interesting as an optional roll. But that's it. Character creation is that quick. Just roll some dice, pick your class, race, and you're done. For classes, they have the barbarian, they have the bard, they have the cleric, a druid, a fighter, an illusionist. For those of you classic players out there, there's a knight, a straight up knight, not a fighter, a knight.
Love that.
We have a monk, a paladin, a ranger, a rogue, a wizard, and an assassin. And those are the base classes.
Those all sound fantastic. Got some familiar options there if you've played D&D. And I assume that even some of them are from older editions as well, or inspired by older editions, which is also cool. Specifically the illusionist. That is an old character class that has come from the ages long since forgotten. So actually, now I'm curious. What is the illusionist? Like, what do they do? Well, if you'll allow me a moment to flip over some pages, I can tell you all about the illusionist. So, the illusionist, for those of you curious out there, especially for you, Willow, your prime attribute is intelligence. So, anything you do with intelligence rolls will be checked against a DC 12 base plus whatever modifiers are added to that difficulty. Your alignment can be any. Your hit dice are a meager D4. Your weapons that you could use are a club, a dagger, a dart, and a staff. As far as armor, you get to wear none. Nothing for you. But for the illusionist, the description of the illusionist is as such. In a profession where skill is measured by power, there are those magi who use their powers to make a mockery of reality itself. Rare indeed are the illusionists. These are spellcasters who use the arcane to blend and blur and twist what is with what may be. They ply the minds of others and twist desire and perception into deceptive and often deadly illusions. Faced with truth from their own fears. Faced with the illusionist spells and incantations, few can unravel the truth from their own fears or desires. Greatly feared for their mind-influencing spells, the illusionist is heralded as one of the greatest and most mysterious of magi. That's so cool. Yes! Isn't it though? That's amazing.
And they give you an archetype and a purpose as well. So for the purpose, they say they make loyal soldiers out of brigands and fools out of professional military men. They can make, let's see, they with their magic, they can empower to rabble and sweep trained armies from the battlefield, which is crazy. With a keen intelligence and depth of perception unknown to most men, the illusionists are able to master complex relationships between magic, the mind, and the mundane. Let's see. Cool. Oh yeah, they're fun. They're interesting classes for sure. And that's just all of that is with every character class. You get their purpose, a breakdown of what they can do, and all these wonderful things. It's exciting.
Yeah, and it helps form like character choice too when you're trying to decide between different classes. Being able to read that and understand like kind of the idea around the class makes that decision even easier to make.
So, Willow, I'm going to ask you a very leading question to continue down the road of character creation. Have you ever found some systems to be lacking in your option of choices from equipment?
Yes.
Well, fear no more, because there are tables aplenty for character equipment in Castles and Crusades. Allow me to tell you some of the titles of them. You have helms. You have helms, helmets, helms. I'll come back to what they're useful for. Armor. In the armor section, I'm just going to count out how many there are. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 sets of armor that you can pick from.
My God.
In the PHB. There are shields. There's not just one shield that gives you a base bonus. No. You have 8 different shields that you can pick from.
That's so fun.
For weapons, there's a buttload of weapons. Like, if you thought there was a lot of armor, there's even more weapons. There's a bunch of missile weapons. There's transport and tack tables for barding, for longboats, for short boats, for horses, for sleds and wagons. There's even a walrus on this table. There's also just general equipment such as armor, weapon, and oil. How about a horn or a stick of incense, ink, a kettle, an iron kettle? How about some fishing gear? Or, you know what? How about a bag of dust? Would you be interested in getting a shoulder pack or a flask of oil? Can I interest you in even maybe a tarp? A large animal tarp?
There's so good.
There's so much. And there's normal clothing, such as a belt, a baldric, a chieftain, a cape, a frock, a doublet. There's also provisions and lodging. And that is all stuffed into 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. And
oh my God.
The tables don't take up the entire page. They take up like a full column. So it's 2-column breakdown on the pages. So for those of you listening, 2-column page spread, tables fill up each of the columns on all of those pages.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. And it's all like together too. And it's not split up weirdly into different areas, which is something I've always been annoyed with the PHB, is when it's like equipment's here, but armor's all the way back here. It's like, why did you do that?
Yes, and like your armor, it gives you the cost, it gives you the AC bonus that you get, it gives you the weight, and it gives you the encumbrance value.
Yes.
For weapons, they give you the cost, the damage, the range, the weight, and the encumbrance value. They give you everything on one table.
So makes it so easy.
It does. Let me circle back to something. The helmets. So those of you who are curious about helmets out there, why are helmets important in Castles and Crusades? Why should I get a helmet? Well, my friends, helmets apply to strikes against your head only.
I love that.
And there are some pieces of armor that give you a helmet for free whenever you buy it. It's just included into the cost, so it's not separate. As for shields, what makes shields different, you might ask? Well, shields don't just give you a flat bonus to your AC for the end of time. No. Shields, let me break down what they can do. So for the AC table, they give you each of the shields, except for the Pavis or Pavis. I'm sorry for those of you out there. I'm really good with pronouncing, but that one's lost on me. That one's a +6 to AC. However, every other shield is a +1. But what changes them is the amount of foes that you can use that AC bonus against.
Ooh, that's really interesting.
So each of them have next to them the numbers 1 through 4. And each of those lines says, armor class bonus is applicable against X number of foes in a round. So the buckler, you can get a +1 to your AC in a round against any foe once in that round. Ooh. For a medium shield made of wood, that's 2 foes in a given round.
I like that. That's really cool.
And that design does help. And I'm sorry, players, for those of you who don't like it, you get hit more. Don't worry. It applies to monsters too. You can hit them easier. It's okay.
It all balances itself out.
And for those of you who are sick of it, there is no bounded accuracy. But if you've ever wanted like a glaive or maybe a military fork or a partisan, perhaps even maybe a knife, just a simple knife. How about a hafted hook or a falchion? They have stats for everything. Everything's so in here.
I love that. And I would imagine so it'd also not be the hardest thing to create your own items and stat them up too.
Not at all. I mean, like if you look at all of those tables, that's an easy reference point to be able to build something.
Makes it even better. I love that. And especially just having that as a resource as a GM, or I guess a CKK.
Yes.
In this game, that is just absolutely fantastic.
Oh yeah, I love it. And I'm going to talk about monsters really quickly because we want to get a sampling of everything, don't we?
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, they also, because they are such a big... Hey everyone, it is the midpoint break here in the episode, and I hope that you have enjoyed listening so far. Please make sure to stick around because we are going to be starting to talk about the monsters and how they work in Castles and Crusades, and I'm really excited because we talk about wraiths and also dragons, and it's really, really cool and it's awesome. But I just want to say, if you are enjoying this episode so far, please make sure to follow the RPG Goblin podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts and leave a review. It's a very easy thing to do, and it helps keep this podcast going and knowing that people are enjoying the show. I want to say another quick thank you to Meliora for coming on and talking all about Castles and Crusades with me. This has been absolutely fantastic, and I'm just really, really excited for you guys to hear the rest of this game. And please, I urge you to go get it for yourself. The link to the 7th edition Player's Handbook will be in the description of this episode so that you can go and check it out, download it for free, and see if it's a game that you're going to like, and maybe bring to your table and switch up what you're playing. It's very, very exciting, but like I said, the link of that will be in the description of this episode, along with the link to Trolls Games website and Meliora's links as well. And for our midpoint, of course, we are going to be promoting a show here, and it's going to be 2 Past Midnight, which if you have listened to previous episodes of the RPG Goblin, Adam Fox, who came to talk about Twilight 2000, runs the 2 Past Midnight actual play show, which is a show where they play Twilight 2000 in it, and it is really, really good. I haven't fully caught up to it, but what I have listened to is amazing, so I'm really excited for you to listen to this promo here, and I think I will stop talking so that we can get into it, and then you can get back to the episode quicker. Oh, I just remembered before we get to the promo here, the RPG Goblin has an official public Discord server now. Woo! I'm really, really excited about this because I just want the opportunity to start talking to you guys about these games. All of the guests who have been on the RPG Goblin are there, and you can go and hang out with me, the guests, and talk all about games and learn even more about TTRPGs. So the link to that is in my link tree, which will be in the description of this episode, or you can go onto Twitter and find it there. Now we can roll the promo.
In a world ravaged by war and chaos, a group of survivors must band together to brave the dangers of a post-apocalyptic landscape. The year is 2000, and the world has been plunged into darkness. The nuclear fires have burned out, leaving behind a wasteland of ruins and radiation. But amidst the rubble and despair, a glimmer of hope still remains. Join Dork Day Afternoon as they face off against marauding gangs, enemy soldiers, and even the harsh elements themselves in the world of Twilight 2000. Will our heroes survive the challenges ahead? Can they keep their own humanity intact? Or will they succumb to the harsh realities of life after the end of the world? 2 Past Midnight, an actual play podcast by Dork Day Afternoon.
to talk about monsters really quickly because we want to get a sampling of everything, don't we?
Of course, yeah. I mean, they also, because they are such a big thing in combat as well, you're going to be fighting monsters. How do they work?
So let me tell you about the Wraith. This will be a good catch-all.
Ooh.
The Wraith, they give you a couple of values to know about. They give you the number, so the number appearing, the size, so the, whether it's small, medium, large, whatever, the number of hit dice that they get, the AC of that creature, the saves that they have available to them, their movement speed, the attacks that they can take, any special abilities they have. They give you their intelligence. So if you're trying to stupefy something that can't be stupefied, you'll be able to know.
Love it.
You give them their alignment. They give you the type that they are, the type of treasure they can give you, and how much XP to get from them.
Amazing. So is this an XP leveling system?
It is an XP leveling system.
Amazing. So I would love to. I'll ask more questions about the leveling up later. Monsters. That is a lot of information that is really good to have on hand too.
Yes, it is. So for the Wraith, they give you a number appearing of 1 through 4. So you can be a very cruel CK and give them 4, or you could roll a D4. Up to you. The number of hit dice that a Wraith has available to them is 5. Now, older GMs will remember from the ye olden days, back when the Monster Manual had HD and a number next to it, and they didn't tell you what sort of hit dice it was, but it was a D8. It said at the beginning of the Monster Manual. Here, they tell you how much hit dice these creatures have, and they give you, in parentheses, the hit dice that you should roll for their health.
Oh, perfect.
So for the Wraith, it has an HD of 5 or a D12. So you roll 5 D12, and that's the hit dice, or the hit points that creature has. Now,
love it.
For the Wraith, they have a movement speed of 30. They can fly 60 feet. They have an attack called Incorporeal Touch, which does a D6 damage. We'll touch on that in a minute. They also have special attacks. They have Create, Spawn, Incorporeal, Immunity, Weapon +1. I'll touch on that. Dark Vision 60 feet and Unnatural Aura. And then, of course, for old school players and for players around the world who are about to collectively drop a poopy, Energy Drain is in this game.
Oh, I'm so curious.
So combat, a Wraith is a substantial sort of ghost-like creature. Only magical weapons of +1 or better can affect them.
Ooh.
So if you don't have a +1 magical weapon, good luck, you ain't doing anything to them.
That is really tricky, but I like that a lot.
And I believe that also applies to just magic. Magic in general can do damage to these things, but if you want a weapon to do it, +1.
Yeah, it makes it more difficult, and you have to, and that's where, choosing to run away or choosing not to engage in stuff like that is very important.
Yes. The Unnatural Aura is an interesting attribute. So it says animals, whether wild or domesticated, can sense the unnatural presence of a Wraith at a distance of 30 feet. They will not willingly approach nearer than that and panic if forced to do so. They remain panicked as long as they're within the range.
That's actually really fun. I like that a lot because you always see dogs in horror movies and stuff. If there's a ghost, the dog doesn't will bark and won't go near it and stuff like that. And then it kind of brings that into this.
They'll whimper and go hide under the couch and they're like, nope, I don't like this.
I love that. That's actually really fitting. That's so cool.
An Energy Drain. One of the things I love the most and other players hate. Energy Drain. Living creatures hit by a Wraith's attack lose 1 level. For each such level lost, the Wraith heals 5 hit points.
Oh no.
Follow that up with Create Spawn. A human victim killed by the Wraith's Energy Drain can be brought back to life as a Wraith under the control of the slaying Wraith.
That's so cool.
Oh, yes. So any spawn created this way have only half strength. They have 3 hit dice instead of 5, and they lose the ability to create spawn, but are otherwise identical.
Oh my god. That's so good. I can definitely see where this wouldn't be everyone's game. But I love it.
But also that puts emphasis on, if you're a low-level party and you try to take on something like a Wraith, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, and that's where like learning through experimenting, through starting these combats and then realizing, oh wait, nope, this is not what I should be doing.
Right,
And then
learning
for the future.
and like being a witcher, you have to learn and prepare before you go into combat. So Willow, I have to ask you about monsters now. What is your favorite kind of dragon?
Ooh, my favorite type of dragon. Are these including metallic and chromatic?
Absolutely.
Ooh. Oh, this is a great question. I really like copper dragons are pretty cool. So let's go with copper.
All right, let's go see some copper dragon. We have copper. We're gonna get some copper dragons. Here we go. So a copper dragon in Castles and Crusades can have a number of 1 to 4 appearing. They're a lot of their yes. Their stats depend on their age or their size. So pick a number between 1 and 12.
1 and 12. Let's go with 8.
All right, so 8. A dragon with the age of 8 will be a size of 20 feet. Oh. It will have HD 15. It will have an AC of 21. Its dragon breath will be 5, and I'll touch on what that means in a little bit here. And its intelligence is 20. And let's go over here to combat the breath weapon. So for a copper dragon's breath, it can take 2 forms. It can do a spray of acid or a thick cone of gas that surrounds and slows anybody caught within it.
That's so cool.
Oh, yes. The acid sprays in a line, inflicting 1d4 points of damage for every hit die of the dragon. So 15 in the case of an 8-year-old copper dragon.
Okay.
So
yeah. Standard 8-year-old activities.
15d4 acid damage for those of you out there. And then a successful dex save reduces the damage by half, so you can save against it. The cloud effects functions as a slow spell. It ignores immunities or resistances and slows 1d4 hit dice or levels of the creature for every hit die of the dragon.
Oh my.
And it lasts for 6 rounds, so good luck.
Oh, of course. Naturally.
And
that is brutal. I love it.
Right, and with how awful it sounds, honestly, the damage they can deal is mostly with their breath weapon.
Yeah.
So, for example, claws. Dragons have 2 claws, which are a d4 each. They have wings, which is a 1d8. Tail is also 1d8. And a bite, which is 4d4.
Interesting. I like how the damage dies are pretty low. Like you're not getting into like, D12 and D10s or even potentially D20, I guess. I've never seen damage as a D20, but it could be.
I believe that there was in the 2nd edition monster manual, actually.
Oh, interesting. I like that. Yeah, but I find that really interesting that it is lower dice for the damage.
That also plays into the fact that a low-level party isn't going to have fun. You're going to die.
Well, that might be fun for them. You don't know.
I mean, they might enjoy it if they want to, but and that brings back the idea. Oh, apologies, I bumped my table here, but that brings back the idea that a dragon's breath weapon is their ultimate weapon against the party.
Yeah.
So it's like they let loose that weapon, slowing a party. That's devastating, especially for 6 rounds. That is 6 rounds that this dragon can do whatever it wants to you.
Oh, that's so painful.
And Sorry, go on.
Yeah, it is so painful, but that also makes people, because this seems to be a bit more of a heavy tactics game too. Like, you want to think of tactics and you want to think of ways to approach these combats, because stuff like where it slows you for 6 rounds is really tricky to deal with.
Yes, you do want to put a lot of emphasis into tactics because, again, if you go blind into combat, sure, you'll have some really lucky nights, absolutely, but your luck is eventually going to run out. And if you're a player at my table, and, this spoiler alert, if I'm controlling a dragon, I play them smart. So And, another YouTuber did a wonderful breakdown of tactical combat with dragons. And I would do the same thing. I would have the dragon, let's say copper. Let's say it's an evil copper dragon or copper dragon against an evil party. Does the breath weapon, hits slow. First thing it's going to do is it's going to find the cleric. It's going to go over to the cleric, grab it, fly into the air, and drop that sucker so that way they die on impact. Like, come on, guys. Be smart. Get like spells or things that'll prevent the dragon from flying, limit, use tactics, use your brain to limit the things that these monsters can do. Use every tool at your disposal.
Yeah, and it also feels like doing in-game research on monsters may even help too.
Yes. I mean,
I love that.
In my game, for sure. If you're in my game and you're like, oh, what is this thing? Like, it would behoove you to go and research what this creature does, what it, what its habitat is, how it hunts, and all this other stuff. Like, you can go in blind if you want, but you'll have a better chance if you prepare.
Yeah. That's generally how it works. But I just love the idea that could even, like, I would definitely, if I was running it, I wouldn't like push the players to research, but definitely anytime that they would research, I would make sure that is something that is rewarded. You're putting the effort into learning about this creature. You're putting the effort into not wanting to die instantly.
Right. And it's a difference between, like, real world, example to compare. It's the difference between saying, hey, I want to go hunt a bear, and researching everything about that type of bear, its environment, all that stuff, versus, hey, I'm going to go hunt a bear. I just bought a rifle for it. I'm going to head out there tonight. It's like, did you do research? No, I'm just going to go find one. And then you end up having, then you just reinvent that scene from The Revenant, and it's no fun. It's the same thing. Like, I'm not going to punish somebody for not researching anything about a monster, but I absolutely will reward them for doing so.
Absolutely. I love that. And actually, I do have a question. So with the combats in this game, do you think it's better to use something like a grid map when you're running through them to make it easier on the players? Is that like a necessity?
Yeah. So personally speaking, I like using grids just because, it's so much easier for someone to look at the grid and figure out where they want to move, be able to see where all the enemies are, where all their allies are. I like playing with grids. You can do theater of the mind. I think just as good practice, if you're going to do theater of the mind, everybody should be working together to maintain continuity of placement.
I like that.
That's just personal preference. You can do it with either, but I say do grids because it's just better with a grid.
It is better with a grid, even any type of map, even if it's just a whiteboard and you draw on your own grids, or at least have an idea of what's going on. It does help kind of keep everything, like, you are all aware of what's happening and where everyone is. And especially I personally have a very hard time imagining things in my head, so theater of the mind has always been a weakness. I love using grids.
Yeah, and like I can maintain a good amount of information, but I mean, I'm human. I will forget stuff. Like, I might have told, Joe, for example, or just gonna throw a random name. I might have told Joe that, like, there is a zombie and is, like, 10 feet away, the round before. And then I get to my turn as the DM and I'm like, all right, the zombie's going to hit you. And they'll be like, no. Zombie was like 10 feet away. Like, I forget stuff. So having the grid is useful. I even have a friend of mine who plays with me locally sometimes whenever he's available. He absolutely benefits from having the grid just because he struggles with being able to maintain that visual continuity, like, in his head. It's just difficult for him. So it's like, well, it costs me nothing to draw a grid, just a simple grid.
Yeah. It doesn't it really doesn't have to be much. It could be a dry erase board. Like, here's a square and here's where, simple grid, and then here's where everyone is. And that little bit of addition to what you're seeing helps so much.
Yes.
It really does.
And And so, Willow, you asked me about experience points in Castles and
yes.
Crusades.
Yes.
So, while you were talking, I very sneakily opened to that section of the player's handbook. By the way, go download it from trollorgames.com. The experience points. After characters defeat monsters or acquire treasure, they can earn experience points. So it's XP from monsters and XP from treasure. Both of those things.
Very
so,
interesting.
Oh, yes. It's great. It's lovely. So the CK should award 1 XP to the party for every 1 GP value of non-magical treasure, such as money, gems, art, and other items acquired during the adventure.
That's
so
I like that.
Yeah, so like, you're not coming home and then you're having to spend it like old school in order to earn that XP. As long as you get it, you got it. You're
nice. Good. I love it.
You
That's
can
so
also
fun.
Yeah, you can get XP for getting magic items. You can you should award magic item XP value to a character who possesses and uses the item for a period of time. So commitment pays off, people.
Use your shit.
Just learn to commit, dang it. Story, you get XP for story. You can get XP for role playing.
Perfect. Yes. Any time a system has non-combat XP earning, it makes me happy on the inside.
Yes, there's just a lot in the system. Like if I was to I'll break down the chapters for you real quick. So all the main chapters, not the sub chapters, main chapters of the player's handbook. After creating a character, you have your classes, you have races, you have completing your character, which includes equipment. There's magic, there's spell formats, there's descriptions for spells. There's a section for the castle keeper and the game. There's a section on combat, turning undead, rewards, movement. Yes, turning undead is in here.
That's cool.
Spell resistance, languages, vision, time, the adventuring party, example of play, etc. And one thing that I would love to highlight is encumbrance, because I know that's a little bit of a taboo, but encumbrance can be fun, I promise you. So the way that encumbrance works is instead of tracking like 10 pounds here, 7 pounds here, etc., every item in Castles and Crusades has an encumbrance value. It's a number. So let's see. Full plate armor has an encumbrance value of 4. That's it. So if you go into encumbrance, your encumbrance rating is equal to your strength score. This is then modified by your prime attributes. So if the character has either the strength or constitution attributes as prime, you may add 3 to your strength score to determine your encumbrance rating. If the character has both strength and constitution as prime, you may instead add 6.
That's nice.
So a character is considered unburdened, burdened, or overloaded according to the amount of encumbrance value that you're carrying. So if you're carrying less than your encumbrance rating, you are unburdened. That's it.
I love this way of tracking it. Instead of, it being weight and having to track like the little things, it just being a straight value. I love it.
And they have a table. Encumbrance category and weight. Unburdened is up to 1 times the encumbrance rating. So as long as the weight is equal to or less than your encumbrance rating, you're good. If you become burdened if it is anywhere between 1 times your encumbrance rating to 3 times your encumbrance rating. Overburdened is more than 3 times. And it's easy. It's so easy. And they tell you what happens when you're unburdened, burdened, or overburdened. If you're burdened, for example, you lose 10 feet of movement score to a minimum of 5 feet, because apparently you still need to be able to walk a little bit. And all of your dex checks get a +2 to the challenge level, so they get +2 harder.
Oh, I like that.
And overburdened, your movement's reduced to 5 feet. 5 feet, not Pete. Sorry, Pete. Per round. Sorry to the 5 Pete's out there who got excited and confused. Automatically fail all dex-based checks, and you lose your dex bonus to AC. That's it. Done.
Boom. Good Lord, it's amazing. It can be easy. And that's the thing that at least I never want to just like bash on things on this show because I think any game anyone can like any game. But with 5e sometimes they don't make it easy
No,
to
and
know what things do.
no, and I will give them credit. They have printed a lot of information between the player's handbook and the DMG, which
Mhm.
for those of you out there who love 5e, read your DMG carefully from cover to cover because I guarantee there are rules that you've been trying to figure out that are in that book.
Yeah.
And I will give 5e that it is very modular. It's easy to learn, it's easy to, do everything. I'm still recovering from memorizing all the rules in 5e. Like I know the rules intimately, like the back of my hand. Like when my girl is running her table, if they have a rules question, they will yell to me in the office and be like, Mel, how does Hunter's Mark work? And I'll be like, oh, it works like da 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 da. So, like, and it's not, and I agree. I don't want to bash it too much because I know people love 5e, and maybe like 10 years down the road, I will love it again. But in order for me to love it, I need to homebrew the crap out of it. And by that point, I'm really just playing Castles and Crusades or Pathfinder Second Edition. So maybe one day. But I do agree that while there is all the information available, I do agree with you that sometimes they don't make it easy for you to figure out what you can do to make your game better.
Mm-hmm. And encumbrance, like I haven't given it a ton of thought outside of a few specific games, but it really can make a game interesting when you have to put like when you put characters in a situation of you can't carry all of that and still be normal. Like still act normally and be able to move normally and stuff like that, and making even hard decisions of leaving stuff behind potentially and needing to know what is the most valuable, what you should take, stuff like that can make games really, really interesting.
That is the interesting part of it, because that plays really well into West March's style play, or even just a home campaign.
Mm-hmm.
You go into a dungeon, maybe you don't want to fight the dragon. The dragon's asleep. You're able to sneak in some treasure and get, beat feet out of there. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Or let's say you do successfully fight your way through a dungeon. There's all this treasure before you. You cannot take all of it home.
Yeah.
Like let's say you don't have enough money for a cart when you start. Okay, that's fine. You do your couple of dungeon crawls. You have enough now for horse and carriage. Cool. You have to go in and out of the dungeon to load it up. But let's say scenario A, you don't have the horse and cart. You go home. You weren't able to take all the treasure. You were able to take like 30% of it or 50% of it. You come
Whatever
back.
you were able to carry.
Yes. And you come back and now it's gone. Well, somebody else got to it in that intervening time.
I love it. Yes.
Or there's also the potential, and mind you, this is random encounter rolling, guys. This isn't like the DM just being hee, I stole your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Random rolling. Come on, use tables and stuff. And let the dice decide. So you have your horse and cart. Maybe while you're in the dungeon gathering treasure to bring back out, maybe, as a CK, you roll a random encounter that some bandits are dropping by, and ooh, here's this unattended, horse with the keys still in it. We don't have to hotwire this horse. We can just take all this treasure.
Mine now.
Exactly. So,
no, but yeah, it creates those interesting scenarios that can and it can move the game forward in ways that like you don't plan, which then makes like prep easier too, where it's like, yeah, this is now the next thing we're doing is maybe having to hunt down these bandits and get the treasure back.
Well, and imagine too with leveling up. Let's say you bring some treasure home and your fighter is like, dude, guys, we have to do one more. We have to go back there for one more trip. I'm only 10 XP away from leveling up. Oh, that's the other fun thing. Allow me to share with you folks. Every class back like in the old days, back in my day, your experience points to level are different for every class.
Yes, I remember hearing that when I actually first started to learn D&D, is they would talk about that it was different. It would fluctuate between the different classes.
It would. So, as a fun example, let's compare two different classes here, just because.
Mhm.
Let's compare the bard, because I like bards. I'm a bard in real life anyway. Level 2. To get to level 2, you need 1,501 experience. For level 3, 3,251. For level 4, 7,501. And then
You have a
lastly, for
one
level...
at the end.
Yes, specifically the one. And I think that's just to be silly and petty. And for level 5, 15,001 experience.
Oh my gosh.
Now, let's go look at another class, the fighter. For level 2, mind you, the bard was 1,501 experience. For the fighter, to reach level 2, you need 2,001 experience points, and so on. So, well, and I guess let's do a couple more, because the fighter also levels up at 3 at 4,001. As well as at 8,501, and then at 17,001 XP. And
so much XP there. So much.
it is. And I should also say the bard is not super magical, if at all. The bard, they are really there for deciphering, script, for inspiring their companions, for having legend lore. And you can fascinate creatures with your music or your your performance, more or
Your
less.
dance.
Yes. There's no magic for the bard. The bard is an orator.
That is so interesting.
Yes. So magic is restricted down to caster classes such as your clerics, your druids, your paladins, your rangers, and your wizards and illusionists.
That's so fun. So, when it comes to fighters, there's not, any option to get magic?
You could multi-class if you would like, but there's not a subclass.
Oh, that's so interesting. I do like that because it does help kind of people still feel individual in their things, because it's so easy for pretty much every class in D&D to get magic. And so when you're a wizard, it's like, well, your magic isn't impressive because the bard can literally strum their ukulele and cast magic themselves.
Yes, and magic ceases to be special when everybody has it.
Yes.
And the multi-classing in order to get things goes back to an older school style of play. I do know that there are folks who believe that less options is, less role play potential. That you're entitled to that opinion. That's okay. I will let you have that. We'll let the devil have his due on this one. That's fine. But personally speaking, I think less is more. The less crunch you have allows for more room to roleplay. You could argue that more crunch also still allows for plenty of roleplay.
Yeah. And I think that depends on the person too, and their view on what, I guess, the abilities do for them and what even the potentials are. But you still have the option to multi-class too. Exactly.
And the expression of the character really is the core of what makes them special, in my opinion. I don't want to be, an Eldritch Knight and then run into another Eldritch Knight. It's like, okay, well, what wizard did you study under? Oh, okay, well, we're both Eldritch Knights with the same spells we could get, in touch with. Cool. If I'm playing a fighter, I can be different from the other fighter at the table. Let's say the other fighter was brought up in a noble house. They're of noble birth. So they have that, that flavor of that austere, high way of speaking. Just, they speak very proper and posh. Whereas, let's say I'm a fighter from the countryside, I might not be as on the nice side. I'm not, I don't care about niceties. I'll eat with my hands at the dinner table, or I'm not saying peasants eat with their hands, guys. Calm down. We're making sweeping generalizations here, okay? Help me paint this picture. But anyway, but you get what I'm saying. It's it all comes down to how you express it. And just because I have the same abilities as another person, even if there's only 5 abilities in a single class, that doesn't mean that I'm not any more or less special than that character. I can make my character special. And in fact, I would argue in a rules light system or a system with less options, it opens up the potential for more options. So let's say in Castles and Crusades, you wanted to play a fighter, but you also want, maybe there's like a specific ability you want to have, like maybe be able to like feint or do a coup de grace or something fancy like that. You can work with your CK to make that happen. The rules are so easy. Same thing with a custom class. Here's a little lore drop on my side for Agrimore, for those of you who are like, oh, Mel, what about this campaign setting you're talking about? Well, in Agrimore, there are things called Void Knights. They are essentially, so cool. Oh yeah, they're fun. They're essentially like an Eldritch Knight, but they get their power from the Void, that vast, expansive, dark place of unknowable nothingness. You get it's a mystery plane. You get your power from the Void. Some source, some patron entity within the Void is the source of their power. The Void Knight is kind of similar to a warlock, but they're more expressed like an Eldritch Knight in that they don't have a lot of magic at their hands, but they're a little bit more survivable because they have that fighter background. And I have started building a Void Knight for Castles and Crusades. So those of you who are interested in it, please tag along. I'll show, I'll share about it later.
That sounds so cool. I love it.
Like coming up with like void magic and void spells, like gravitational wells and things like that. And, or maybe even potentially a high level void spell that just erases somebody from existence. You never know. But there's so much room to play with, like all the rules. And Castles and Crusades let me do that. I mean, I can do that with 5e, but it's lower magic. There's less magic to go around. So I think that makes it more special. So it's like, oh, you're not just a regular knight. You're not just a regular fighter. You're not a wizard. You're a void knight. You're a very specific type of knight. There's something different about it. It's just
you're your own thing. I think that's just amazing. Oh, that's so cool. I love when people talk about their love for flexibility, like within different systems, and just the ways they like to manipulate the systems and change them into what they want and be able to add those details. I love it so much.
Yeah.
It makes me so very happy. And actually, we're probably getting closer to the end of the episode here. And there's a few more things I would like to cover. So let's do that with actually a very fun question will be last that I can't wait to hear your answer to. But I wanted to talk about, so for the castle keeper and people who want to run Castles and Crusades, are there any pre-written adventures or material that you can run?
Yes, there are. There are adventures. There's let me pull this up real quick for you while I tell you all about it. There are pre-made adventures that have been written by a lot of the talented writers on staff at Troller Games. And they have so many cool like things. There are adventures aplenty. We have Rising Night, Assault on Blacktooth Ridge, Slag Heap, A Shattered Night, Demon's Tale, Night of the Spirits, Reaping Bones, Stains Upon the Green. There's all sorts of adventures that are pre-made for you to be able to play in. And for anybody interested in getting into Castles and Crusades and having a pre-made adventure, I would suggest seeking out an adventure module called A Lion in the Ropes.
A Lion in the Ropes.
Yes. And that is a really good starting point to jump in on. There are a couple of other ones that are good, but that is one that was recommended to me. So that's where I would say to start. Start there, give it a shot, and I think you'll love it. And that's the thing too. The PHB is free. The 7th edition PHB is free.
Yes, and that is absolutely fantastic, and I love that they have that resource just out there. Like, because it's always scary to get into a new game and have to buy the books, because what if you end up not liking them? What if you don't like the game, things like that, because you weren't able to read through the media or even see the media through like actual plays or anything like that, and then
Yep.
be like, oh wait, no, I actually don't like this game. The fact
And
that
then
they have the player's handbook free,
yeah.
amazing.
And like, you do that, you get interested in a system and, you haven't seen actual plays like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And you're dropping $40 to $60 on a brand new system that you've never played before. And I think
Mm-hmm.
average $20 for a PDF. And you get it. And if you don't like it, you feel like you've wasted your money. And that sucks. But I love the fact that they have put the 7th edition printing up for free. So like, if you're curious about Castles and Crusades, you can easily get it. It's literally the same as the 8th edition printing, with the only differences being that there's a little bit of a formatting difference. So the formatting is a little older. So please bear with it. And other than that, it's just a couple of tweaks to the rules. That is it. It's not a massive difference between 7 and 8. So it's not like you're jumping in on, like, let's say 4th edition D&D and everybody else is on 5th edition. It's not like that at all.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is great. It just simplifies the whole process too. And like the fact that it seems like all the books are pretty cross-compatible then, if there aren't huge changes.
Mm-hmm. And you can, they are cross-compatible. If I'm not mistaken, Steve had said, and Steve, I'm sorry if I'm misquoting you, something to the effect of that your 1st edition copy of the PHB for Castles and Crusades is still compatible with the 8th edition printing.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And moreover, because this is a more old school game, you can have access to playing old school modules that TSR put out without having to modify them.
Oh, perfect.
So if you've ever wanted to go try out Castle Amber or, like Vault of the Drow, or play through the Vecna Lives like storyline, you can do that with Castles and Crusades, and your CK doesn't need to change a thing.
That is so good. I love it. Just simplifies it all. It really does. It just simplifies it and makes it so that you don't even have to drop money on a new book if it comes out, because you're still fine with what you have. Like, it just makes it easier and a bit more accessible for people too. And you could always buy, I guess, older editions if you want to as well. Like, if you prefer something older, or even if they might be cheaper or anything like that, you can just do that instead of buying the new edition, because it's not that different.
Exactly.
That's so good. I love it.
So what other questions did you have for me, Willow?
Absolutely. So, I mean, this kind of falls into the same line with what we were just talking about. Does Troll Lord Games have official like online resources on their websites, or even like communities that you can use to help, be able to play this game and learn about it easier, or even just have people that you can talk to?
Yes. So those are amazing questions. Let me start with social media. Let me see. So on Instagram and Twitter, you can reach out to Troll Lord Games. So Troll Lord Games is at Troll, TROLL, Lord, LORD, Games. And that account is run by Davis. And if you have any questions about Castles and Crusades rules, you can reach out to him there. And the gentleman is the one who came up with the Siege engine. He is a mad genius. He's a mad scientist. So if you have questions about rules, you can absolutely reach out there if you don't want to get on Discord or anything.
Amazing.
Steve is also there. I'm there. Chuck, TLG Chuck, he is the community manager for Troll Lord Games. You can reach out to him on Twitter as well. They're also on Instagram, just Troll Lord Games is. As far as other social media, they are on Discord. They have a Troll Lord Games Discord server. So on that server, you can go chat with everybody who's in the hobby, like playing Castles and Crusades together. They have support channels. They have a specific channel for you to talk to Steve about any questions you have. There is a supporters club. There is, let's see, there's community resources. So you can ask the experts There's arts, visuals, and graphics. There's maps and tokens, tools, docs, etc. There's a shop content creator section. There's buy, sell, and trade, and then useful crowdfunding. They also have social channels in there. There's a lot of cool stuff in the Troll Lord Games Discord.
Amazing. That's
and
so
then,
good.
Right? They're really good about this stuff. They're also on Twitch. Normally they stream Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The first show of the week is just Steve touching base with the community, talking about whatever, answering questions. Second stream is in the morning, and that is with Davis. So you get to deal with all the crazy that is Davis, and we love him. He's an interesting character. He's lovely though. And then Thursday is the Troll Roundup, the weekly Troll Roundup, and that is at 4 p.m. Central, and that just gathers all the team members, and we get on Twitch and just talk to the community, talk about the week, any interesting upcoming stuff, and we've started getting into having topics because we've been very off topic as of late. Because, that happens whenever you're around people you enjoy talking to.
Oh, of course.
And then Saturday, Sunday, they run a gaming stream on Twitch. So you can see Castles and Crusades. You can see it in play. Now, for their website, it is trolllord.com. You can go to their homepage. They have their store, which has all the players' handbooks, Castle Keepers Guides, the Monsters and Treasure. Mm-hmm. They have an information section they have a link that takes you to their World Anvil page about Aired, which is their campaign setting. Mm-hmm. They have a newsletter. They have a retail store, locator. So those of you who want to find CNC around you can go there. I
love that.
They have so many things on their website, but also, most importantly, they have, They have a third-party publishing section. So for those of you who are third-party publishers, they have downloadable files. They have the third-party guidelines, the CNC license, an AA license for Amazing Adventures, which uses the Siege engine. We'll not worry about that. That's another version of CNC. That's like sci-fi stuff.
That's fun.
There's the writer's guidelines, and then there's the Troll Lord style guide. Along with that, you have a TIFF file of the third-party logo and the Castles and Crusades logo, as well as PSD for the logo and the layered Castles and Crusades logo.
I love that so much. That's so good.
And they have a really nice website. So those of you who are looking for resources, they are there. I promise you they're there. And if you can't find any of these things and you still need links, I will be happy to send you their way. You can reach out to me on Twitter. I will absolutely help you find any CNC related stuff. I'm not one of their paid staff. I'm just a contracted artist, but I'm still in the loop. I'm still in the team chats in our little Skype channel. I'm in the loop. So if you need to get a hold of somebody for rules or anything, or if you're just curious about CNC, I can direct you in the right direction. I am also happy to answer it myself. I love this game, and I love the team, and they treat me like family. So by golly, I'm going to return the favor and spread the love about CNC.
Oh, I adore that so much. Absolutely. Man, I just love meeting people who are so in love with these games. And actually, I think that's there were a few things that I was thinking of asking, but also there's things that people can find out through playing the game and looking into it themselves.
Yes.
And I think that's and what you were just saying is a good transition into my favorite question I like asking people, just because it's so fun to hear the answers, is why do you love Castles and Crusades?
Why do I love Castles and Crusades? Well, as far as I am concerned, Castles and Crusades allows me to elevate my campaign setting, Agrimore, into a playable format that really expresses the vision that I had for the world since I started building it. I've tried every system under the sun, every popular system under the sun, and Castles and Crusades sits at the very, very tippy top of what gets the best feeling for my setting. It is the only system, I would say, outside of Savage Worlds that has out of the box been perfect for me, that I have never wanted to change anything. Pathfinder 2nd edition, you can't change anything without breaking the car. So it's a sports, it's like a supercar. It works, it's fine. Don't try to change anything. It works as intended. I still love it. But Player's Handbook, and this touches on another hobby of mine, Castles and Crusades is for me like a drift car. It's not perfect, but it has a lot of heart. You can customize it however you want. You can make it as goofy or gaudy as you want it to be. You can play a story game if you want to. You can have a campaign setting where, everybody is just in this like perfect utopia and, there's barely any like wrong going on in the world. You can do that in C&C if you want to. You can have a dark fantasy setting like Dark Souls and play it in Castles and Crusades. Yes. You can play any way you want to, and it will facilitate that for you. And moreover, the biggest thing that I love about it is that Castles and Crusades allows me as a castle keeper to express my imagination in a way that doesn't make me feel like I'm confined. It opens up possibilities just like old school games do, but it has modern game design sensibilities. So that way it's fun, objectively fun for newer players. Because if I was to take a newer player into 2nd edition AD&D, they would need to get in a certain mindset because it can be very unfun if you're not prepared for it. Castles and Crusades, I will gladly set any 5th edition player down and run it for them on the spot. And I know that they'll have fun. So, in summation, I love it because it feels, it's home. It feels like home.
That's perfect. I mean, that is just straight up perfect. I love the reasonings, and I love the last bit of just, it feels like home. That's your home system. And that's the one that's always there for you, it feels like.
Yes, it is. And that extends to the team at Trollord Games. For any woman out there who is trying to get into the RPG, into the RPG world, being part of a team, making and selling games, we've all heard the horror stories about creepy people. Men and women are both guilty of this, so don't take sides, anybody. They're creepy people who make very uncomfortable experiences out in the world and in the hobby. And I can genuinely tell you that Trollord Games treats me perfectly. They're never creepy. None of the team members have ever been creepy. They've never said anything uncomfortable. And I guarantee you, if ever they said something that made me uncomfortable, I could say, hey, that wasn't cool. They would correct it. They're just like a family. They're like a family should be. And that's the vibe.
I love it.
They care about the system. They love the system. If you listen to them talk about Castles and Crusades, you can hear the passion. And they love their fans, which is, I think it's noticeable in the fact that they do so much stuff for the community. They listen to the community whenever they have questions. They answer questions. They do live streams. Steve and Davis are incredibly busy individuals as CEOs of a company. They don't have to take time out of their day to talk to the community or to talk to anybody in the hobby, to just sit and do a live stream and answer questions and, just sit around. Yeah. They don't have to do that, but they do because they love the people who love the game. They love their community. They love their people. And I think they wouldn't mind me speaking on their behalf for that.
I'd hope so, because I think it's very clear, anyone who's listened, that you are also very much in love with this game. And it's amazing that because they do take that time to interact with the community, that you who love how much you love this game and you getting a chance to actually work with them and work on the game itself that you are so in love with is amazing.
It is. And that's the incredible part. As an artist, they take care of me. Granted, I'm not making money hand over fist. I'm making I'm making beer money. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I have my career as a designer, a graphic designer, because now I can go and do commissions for a company like Trollord Games. I don't have to make hundreds and hundreds of dollars on every commission. I'm happy to make a little bit less. And mind you, they pay a fair amount. They actually genuinely do pay a fair amount. And they treat us very well.
Mm-hmm.
But they pay up. They're responsible.
Mm-hmm.
I can't speak highly enough. I can't speak highly enough about these guys. I love them. And I don't know. It's like that's all I can say. Is like I just can't speak highly enough about them, and I love them. They're wonderful. And obviously, if any of you gentlemen are listening to this, big hugs from me to you, because I love the system.
Oh, I think that's amazing. I love hearing this, and I think that's honestly probably a good point to finish this episode off with. Just like absolute love for the community, love for the system, love for the game, love for the creators. I adore that so much. And thank you so much, Mel, for coming on and talking with me about Castles and Crusades. This has been absolutely fantastic, and it's been amazing to hear about it and learn about it through you and your passion for it, because it is very, very clear how much you love this game.
Yeah, thank you so much, Willow, for just reaching out and taking the time to invite me to your Discord server, by the way, which is awesome. And also taking time out of your Saturday to have this, conversation with me, dedicating 2 hours of your life to chittering about a game you've never played. So thank you so much for the time.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's my favorite thing to do. I wish I could do it every day.
Well, let's see what we can do about giving you some hype to do that.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. But yes, thank you so much. And if you want to say one last time where people can find you, please go ahead.
Yes. So you can find me primarily on Twitter. It is at Meliora Henning, MELIORAHENNING. You can find me there. I have a link tree in my bio that leads to my campaign setting wiki. It is set to read, so anybody can come and read as I'm building it. You can check it out. Tell me what you hate. Tell me what you love. I will tell you that you're wrong, but no, I'm kidding. I love creative criticism and constructive criticism and feedback. But I have a link tree to that. I have a link tree to my artist website. I also am more than happy to direct you to anything Castles and Crusades related. Most of the time on my socials, I'm just kind of goofing about. Sometimes stirring the pot a little bit. The latest one is about paladins, so go check that out.
I've seen that.
It's actually been a very positive stirring of the pot, so I'm surprised. But I like having fun. So you can follow me if you want. You can come check out my stuff. You're not obligated to, but again, if you have any questions about CNC, I am more than happy to answer them or direct you to where you can find more out about it.
Yes, perfect. And I will be having the links to all of Mel's stuff in the description of this episode as well. So that makes it a little bit easier on your end to find everything that she's on. But yes, I think that is fantastic. Please go talk to her about Castles and Crusades because she is hungry to talk about it and it's amazing.
I am also just hungry.
It's so fair though.
I'm thinking about getting me some chicken nuggies and some honey mussy, you know what I mean?
I mean, that sounds great. Now I'm hungry. No, this has been fantastic, though, and thank you so much for coming on, and thank you, everyone, for listening. This is going to be the end.